Because the problem, here's one of the biggest risks of not having values, is people don't know who you are.
Sure.
Your organisation doesn't even know what you stand for,
Sure.
and therefore there's nothing to base your decisions on. And so, if you give that lens, give that perspective to your people, it's so much easier to get alignment. Okay, everyone's aligned because no, that's not who we are. This is who we are. So it does make making decisions simple.
Welcome to the Kings and Priests podcast.
Hey, and welcome to the Kings and Priests podcast, where we are super passionate about amplifying the influence of young professionals for the church and for the world. I really hope that this conversation helps you feel like you can take your next step towards becoming and being the change that's needed wherever you are. So without taking up any more of your time, let's get stuck into this episode's conversation. It's so good to have you here, man.
Hey man, thanks for having me.
It's been months since we've started talking about doing this.
Yeah.
You've made your appearances in some big places, man, whether it's, at your church, in the local community, but really honored to have you here because you're my age, but you're just changing the landscape of treating as a health professional. Now, for those who don't know you yet, tell us in 30 seconds or less who you are, what you do. Tell us about your beautiful family, which you now have a little girl. Give us a quick spiel.
All right. Well, my real name's Aldrin. People like to call me Buzz. It's just easier when you're ordering coffee.
Yeah.
But for those that don't know, Buzz Aldrin, second man on the moon.
Yeah.
You're all my mates, so you can all call me Buzz. I'm 31, and I'm a husband to my lovely wife, Annalyn. I've got a little girl. She's 18 months old now, and her name's Lainey. And we live locally. We attend church at Hillsong here in the hills. I guess by trade, I'm a physiotherapist. Been a physio for about 10 years now. But I guess the main thing right now in terms of what's on my plate is I'm not just doing physio. We're building a fair bit of physio clinics around Sydney. So it's been a great journey of navigating through COVID, as well as just over the last 10, 11 years. It's been super rewarding being in this space.
Yeah, and I remember we were talking offline, but the first time we connected, I think you were at 2 or 3 clinics looking to grow. And that was probably 12 months ago. In that space, you've grown to 8 locations, looking at still further expanding. Have you looked back and thought, like, there's this one thing that really came through, or like, what can you put that down to, really? Because I look at your life, I look at your business, I look at the culture that you're setting within your business, and I've been, a really cool. I've played a really, outside part of that, but I can still see how much you've affected your workplace. What do you think has really spurred this exponential growth and really quick growth? Yeah,
I think it's a combination of things. I don't believe there's just one thing that actually just happens and then all of a sudden, everything changes. But I would say that one of the biggest things is just having this huge confidence that God's going to come through. I think when you have that perspective that, in business, God's kind of your greatest business partner, and He never fails you. He's got everything you need to succeed. Making decisions, hard ones, easy ones, daily ones, or ones for the long run, they just become so much more easier. Because you've just got this piece about it. And I remember one thing I really wanted to get really good at was just become a better leader. And the only way really to lead and to do it right is to lead like Jesus. And at the time, I owned a gym with one of my best mates, and we decided we'd attend night school at church and just develop ourselves as leaders to lead people in our spheres, whether it's at the gym that we owned or in the physio clinic, or even just as husbands and fathers. We just wanted to lead like Jesus, and we attended night school, and it was awesome. We met different people that have gone before us and done it in a way that builds the kingdom and has a, putting the kingdom first mentality. And it's been awesome because, when you see their success and you see that their faith in God is greater than anything, it's really comforting. And so that I guess the drive and the desire to be the best leader possible has been a huge has played a huge impact. From there, we were able to lead our teams better, and just over time, small little things just grew to bigger things. And like you said, a couple of clinics was when we first started, and now God's blessed us by opening heaps more. And those opportunities come just by being persistent, persistent, consistent, trusting like things are going to come through. Yeah. So it's been great.
That's awesome. Everyone would have heard, the term leaders are learners or leaders are readers. However, not many people maybe look at leadership through Jesus's lens. Jesus said, he came to first to seek and save, but also to serve. And I think hearing your story previously, it seems like it hinges on a really hard concept as a leader, which is surrender. So how's the idea of surrender really helped you grow as opposed to hinder your growth? Because I guess in the world's lens of leadership, there's probably not so much focus on surrender. It's more focus on direction and vision and, how can we help people get from here to there? Whereas in your story and potentially one of the parts that's played in your growth as a person, but also as a business leader, I've heard you say previously it's more about surrender to God, that is. So how has that really helped you?
Yeah, I mean, I guess the story for surrender comes back to like my dad. Growing up, my dad was hardest worker I know, and we came from a family that we're from the Philippines, and my dad was an engineer back then, but he wanted to start a life here in Australia and give our family a bit more opportunity. And when he came here, he was working hard to afford a house and pay off a house. He was a postie, a kitchen hand, a cleaner, you name it. He was delivering pizza just so that his family didn't have to go through what he did growing up in the Philippines. He grew up in one of the poorest provinces in the Philippines. So seeing him work hard, I could see that my dad tried to control everything. He wanted to, he put everything on his shoulders, and it was his responsibility to provide for the family. And he knew who God was, but didn't really have a really deep relationship with him. And so he took matters into his own hands. When I was 12, my dad, because he was working so hard, one day he was on the postman bike and was delivering mail, and everything just went black. He lost his eyesight completely. He went completely blind, and he's just bought this house. He's trying to provide for his family, and he now just can't see. So how is he going to make this happen? And that time, friends of ours introduced us to a church out at Glendenning, and my family attended it. Long story short, my dad found God. He accepted Jesus as Lord and Saviour, and basically just had he had, no pun intended, but better perspective for how to approach life. And I guess with my dad, he never really wanted to surrender anything. He kind of was forced to surrender. And he had to give up stuff so that God can do what he does best. Yeah. But, from me and my experience, I saw how hard my dad worked, and he would still try and instill hard work ethic in me. And I worked hard my whole life just to try and get to where we are today. I tried to get top grades at school, tried to be the best sportsman, and I really wanted to lead that way. And in business, early in business, because we've had this business for about 10 years, is early in the business, it was just me. I tried to hire people, but they weren't doing it right. So, I let them go. I found it very hard to trust people. But it came to a point where I was working so hard. Like, this would be my day. I'd wake up at 5 a.m. I'd treat people from 5 to 6 a.m., drive to a place at 7 a.m., work full-time 7 to 7 p.m. Then I'd go back to the gym and treat again from 7:30 p.m. till about 9:30 p.m. And then I would then train at 9:30 to 11. Wow. So I was at this point where I was working so hard that it was just not sustainable.
Sure.
And so you become the ceiling, right? I basically found that in business, if you can work as hard as you want, but then at some stage you become the ceiling. And I knew that I wanted this thing to grow, but I can't do it alone. So I remember hearing this podcast, and the saying goes, you can have control or you can have growth, but you can't have both.
Yeah.
You either have one or the other. And I think at that point in time, I was like, well, what do I want for my future, for my family? What have I seen in the past with my dad's life? I can learn from this. And really, you've got to let go of things so that you continue to continue to progress. It's like going on a journey and packing, 2 suitcases worth, and really you're only gone for like 3 hours, right? You're just carrying so much extra weight. You just can't get around like that. So had to let go of stuff, and had to hire a team, and I just had to trust people.
Sure.
And you just trust people until you're proven otherwise, right? So yeah, for me, surrendering control of just things in my business was one thing, but surrendering control of like the outcome of where we're heading with business was another thing. That there was, was the biggest thing. I remember listening to a sermon once about going all in with Jesus. Are you all in with God? And if you are all in, are you willing to surrender whatever it takes to, follow what God's got on your life and he's called you to do. And I'll share one more story, is that at the time where I had this decision to go all in with God was I owned this gym with a mate of mine, and I love the gym, love the people, love the community. We're doing great, this is awesome. We had lots of people love being part of it. But I knew that God was calling me to do something in healthcare, with physio, and really start to move in that direction. But I found it very hard to let go of this thing that we built together, my mate and I, this gym. But I could see how it was taking me away from, my family, taking me away from where the physio could potentially go to, and the people that needed me in that sphere. And through a lot of prayer and a lot of trust in God, and just, saying, mate, God, if you want this for me, then I'm happy to give it up. And God was telling me at that time, I'm going to need you to give up this gym. Wow. And so that was probably one of the hardest decisions, because you build this thing, you want to keep it, obviously. Sure. But surrendering that to then allow God to do what he has done for, this physio space, I don't regret it. I've seen God come through, and it's been huge in terms of what I thought was possible. He's done 10, if not 100 times more than what I thought. So wow. Surrender is huge. It's tough, but there's a reason why it's tough. A lot of trust involved, a lot of faith involved.
So how, if someone's listening to this and they're a business leader and they've hit that ceiling, or they've created that ceiling, how do you distill who you are, so your vision for the business, or the years of preparation and the years of planning and hiring, or dreaming for what your business could be? How do you distill that to come to a place where you can then pass that on to other people, so that they pick up the vision and run with it, so that you're able to surrender control but still trust that they have your heart? What have you learnt in that process, going from someone who created, you're saying created your gym with your partner? You're obviously a very entrepreneurial person, working many jobs, juggling a lot of things, very driven. But how do you then go, okay, there's a point where I do need to relegate my control so that I can grow. But by doing that, how do I set the people I'm relegating to up well for success? How do I set them up well?
Yeah, great question. I think you need to certainly get your team to understand why we're doing what we're doing.
Right.
If they understand the purpose behind why we rock up every day, why we do the things we do, and get them to just understand the real purpose as to where this thing is going and the impact that it's going to have on people. I think when people understand that, they're more inclined, more motivated, they buy in more to the vision that you've got for the thing. And the other thing I find is that, I might have a vision for where I feel this is going, but I suppose what I've learned for myself is that when I communicate this to the team, and we instill these values and help them understand why we're doing what we're doing and the problems we're solving, and they get it, they actually start to add their own feedback and their own reasons for why they want to support that why.
Yeah, that's good.
And so now it's not just Buzz's vision, it's actually everybody that's part of this organization. It's our vision. It's us that are in this thing together. We're all on the same bus heading the same direction. We might have different reasons for it, but we share the same common goal, and that's huge. So just huge. The thing is big communication, you know, helping people understand your perspective, but then also it goes the other way. It's like understanding my team's perspective as well, because if they don't get it, I mean, I don't know if they don't get it if I don't ask the question. Sure. So it's just being, you know, quite two-way with your communication as well. But yeah, vision and values, they go a long way.
That's good. The way vision was taught to me was obviously it's your why. This is why I do it. It's what gets me up in the morning. It's why I, you know, get up at 5:30 and you know, treat people for an hour before I go and, you know, travel across Sydney. And then I got to a mission. My mission is either how or what. Like, how am I going to outwork my vision? And then you said your values, and I really understand my values as who are we as an organisation. Now, the gym you were speaking about, you created that. You started as a business, but really it started to morph into a family. And the values that you'd based it and believed in were strength, community, and purpose. Those three values itself create a place where people can come and feel like they just are included, like you said, for their own reasons potentially, but revolving around these three core values. Why is it so important to have clear business values that you can embody on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, great question. I think when we, as a business, okay, if we all understand who we are and what we stand for, then it just gives us the platform, it gives us the framework to be able to make decisions. So like say, for example, one of our values for Profrom is heart, right? We actually need to care for our patients on a level that's deeper than just where's your pain, but more so like why is this so important to you that we get you back to basketball? Like, what is the real reason for this? It might be because it's the only thing that helps me, my kid feel inspired by my work, whatever it is, right? I want to get to the deep core of that. Now, if we don't understand like heart is a value and we just go about our day just doing the bare minimum, not diving deep and just saying, where's your pain? Okay, see you later. Here's the exercise, see you later. Then we're not really truly living up to who we really are as an organisation. For Rise and Conquer CrossFit, one of our, like you said, one of our values was community. Right? If decisions need to be made for the business for whether or not we buy this equipment or maybe we allocate our funds to this, we ask, does this actually tick the boxes for our values? Is it help our individuals become stronger? Right. Yes. Does it help improve our community and the strength in our community? Yes. And does it achieve our purpose of using CrossFit as a platform for God to be revealed in our work? Yes. All right, cool. Let's do it.
Great.
So it gives you the framework. It gives you the lens of like, all right, this is who we are. Because the problem, here's one of the biggest risks of not having values is people don't know who you are. Sure. Your organisation doesn't even know what you stand for. Sure. And therefore, there's nothing to base your decisions on. And so, if you give that lens, give that perspective to your people, it's so much easier to get alignment. Okay, everyone's aligned because no, that's not who we are. This is who we are. So it does make making decisions simple.
I love that because that speaks to everyone, whether it's personal leadership, business leadership, church leadership. We were speaking offline again. You're looking at your family, what your family values are. That's huge. I don't think many people think like that. Who are we as a family unit? Who are, myself, my wife, my son, like who do we represent when we, raise our child so that he goes and represents us, but also the God, like who are we actually representing? I love that our values set us apart from what we truly do. And you were saying that, in Profrom, one of the values is heart. I've experienced that being treated at one of your clinics. But then it also opens up the conversation and maybe the question for you, as a Christian in the business world, how do you outwork your faith? Is it through your values? Is it through instilling, really, faith-based frameworks such as, heart and care and making sure, pastoral care in its kind of secular sense is kind of a part of your business? Or is it, some people might think it's more having prayer meetings at 5 a.m. in the morning. It's a big question as a Christian business owner. How do I actually outwork my faith in my business? How have you found that you've tried to do that?
Yeah, it's good. It's really good. I think with values, right? Like if your values match your actions, then you're someone we can trust, right? You have the integrity. You have the integrity.
Yeah.
This is who I am, and my actions support that.
Sure.
I think if you base your values on Christ-like culture and people see you acting that out, then obviously you become a credible person.
Right.
You become a person that we can trust, and for who God's character is and who Jesus is in my life, if I can replicate who he is and what he does and how he thinks, then I know that I'm going to attract people.
Sure.
Right? And I've done that in Profrom, and my team actually know that I attend church and I believe in God, and I've invited them to church.
Sure.
So the second thing I'd say with outworking my faith is don't try and hide it, right?
Yeah, great.
You don't have to be so strong about like, hey, you need to read your Bible and all that sort of stuff, but it is part of who I am.
Sure.
It's my identity. It's found in Christ. Yes, I'm a business owner, a physio, all the rest of it, but it's a follower of Jesus that comes number one. And so I don't try and hide it. If someone asks me, hey, how was your weekend? I'll be like, yeah, Saturday did this, Sunday went to church, it was awesome.
Yeah.
And then more often than not, people will ask me, because it's not something you just kind of say off the cuff, like, yeah, went to church, it was sick. But like, oh, which church do you go to?
Yeah.
And it actually sparks a conversation about, where do you go? Why do you go? How long have you been going? And then I can ask them about it. It's an invitation to talk about it. But yeah, certainly, it's funny you mentioned about praying for people. We actually did that. We used to at the old gym. We used to host this thing on Sunday morning to invite people before church to just do a free workout at the park.
Awesome.
But we'd tell everyone like, hey, this is our ministry. It's ways for us to give back to the community. We love that you're here, but we just want to pray for you guys.
That's great.
Yeah, whether you believe it or not, but like we just we respect everyone has their own beliefs, but what we believe in is we believe in a God that loves you, and we'd pray for people.
Wow.
And here's the thing, people would come back, even though they knew that we were from, we're Christian and stuff.
Yeah.
So to me, it's like, I would say that people like following people that are authentic.
Yeah, sure.
If that's part of who you are, don't hide it.
Yeah.
Like, just be you.
Yeah, I like that.
So yeah, that's how we outwork our faith. Definitely through a lot of our values matching our actions, and also just being authentic. Yeah,
I love that, because I think in my experience talking to people in the workplace as Christians, it's always there's an unspoken thing where it's like, if you're a Christian in the workplace, then you've got to do everything to make sure everyone else is a Christian in the workplace by the time you leave this job, right? And it sounds like what you've done is you've identified that all you can do is plant the seed, and if they come back, you're watering the seed, and you don't expect a tree before you plant the seed. So you just be faithful to what you're given and authentic to who you are. And I think, for many people, it may look like a water cooler conversation where they're, led to Jesus at the water cooler. But more often than not, it could just be turning up, doing your job well. The spirit of excellence actually glorifies God in that he's given us his talent and the ability to work well for someone or for something. And I think at Profrom and in your life, I can see that excellence, but also the experience that people feel set you apart. When I walked into Profrom for the first time, not as a patient, just as I honestly felt like I was led there by God. I was just walking past and I'm like, there's a physio up there, I'm going to go check it out. And as soon as I walked in, had an experience in a physiotherapy clinic that I've never had before in my life. And I've worked in the health space. So, and then I asked you, I'm like, why is it different? And just tell us why have you set Profrom up in such a way that a person's first experience matters so much to you, but also to them?
Yeah. I mean, everyone's heard the old adage, like first impressions, right? Like having a good first impression. But I guess the experience and this whole thing about chasing excellence, I mean, we have skills and talents and creative minds that God's blessed you with for a reason. And I just don't, I would hate to see that potential, whatever you have to offer, whatever's in your hand right now, if you're listening out there, whether you are a physio or not, or have big things or small things, whatever God's placed in your hand, I would hate to see you not realise that, you know, and at least explore that.
Yeah.
And for us at Profrom, we just made a decision that if we're going to be who we say we're going to be, we're going to do it well, and we're going to at least try to be the best at it. And it's not just the service, but it's everything. It's the whole experience. If you're going to claim to be the best, it's got to be from point A to point Z. From the moment you make your first booking to, you know, the first time you enter into the space, you need to make sure that this experience is the best one. And I think that goes with everything that you do in life, not whether it's business or if you're just in your career working for somebody else, and it doesn't matter. You can always add your craftsmanship to what you do, and that alone gives you some form of purpose, right?
Sure.
And so if you're, you know, maybe you're not in business and trying to, you know, do something in that sphere, but if you're in a place where you're working for someone or somewhere, you can definitely, you know, chase that spirit of excellence, as you say, to glorify God. So yeah, my team see the importance of it, not just from, I guess, from a, you know, my boss told me to do this, but also for their own self. You know, we've got one of the things we really like doing is you know, talking about, you know, some of our behavioural values, and there's a book called Legacy about the All Blacks and what makes them the best, and one of their things is to sweep the sheds. It's all about humility. Wow. You're never too big to sweep the sheds. And the All Blacks, they play their game, and afterwards they go in and they clean the locker room up, right? It's the same thing with Profrom. Everything you do, whether it's in front of people or not, you're never too big to do the small things.
That's great.
And God sees that, right? God sees your heart, he sees your actions, and I think you just got to be consistent, whether someone's looking or not. So yeah, for those guys, they do their best, and it's been great. So good that you're giving me this feedback, mate. It's just
and now we have it on we have it.
That's it.
How good's that?
That's awesome.
We as you're probably watching, we're doing this live, and we have a light kind of just fall off the wall, but it's all part of it.
That's the spirit in the room.
You were talking about like your capacity. So we said before, there's, you know, you've got a 1.5-year-old. You've got, you know, your wife who's a high school teacher. You have 8 locations, many staff. You're involved at church. There's just so much going on. How do you? And it sounds obviously like you're very much into self-development, but also becoming a better person, a better leader, both for yourself, for your family, for everyone. What are some ways that you found have worked in your life in terms of growing your capacity to be that bigger leader, to be that person who can maybe handle more than the more that God's going to bring into your life? Yeah,
man, you're asking some good questions. Man, there's so much. Like I could give you heaps of different hacks and all that sort of stuff, but if I can try and give you some, you know, some bigger things. Number one is, I would say, for capacity, know where your source is, right?
Great.
It's not you that's going to be doing everything and going to be able to cope with everything that God's going to, you know, throw at you and provide and the opportunities that are going to come for you. It's God, right? He is the, you know, I guess, infinite source of energy, of peace, encouragement. He's the one that's going to provide you with what you need. All right. So it's not you, it's actually him. So for me, it's always leaning on him as my number one. The other thing I would say is, like, surround yourself with really good godly influence.
Yeah.
If you want to be great in business, find someone who's done it in business, but also is you know, for me, like, who are the biggest or like the most faithful kingdom builders. And it's not the people that have the most money. It's more the people that have the heart for the kingdom.
Yeah. The one who stewards the $1 or the $1 million.
That's right. That's right.
And stewards them both the same.
That's right. Yeah. Surround yourself with people like that, right? Because one thing I heard, it was actually last weekend at Kingdom Builders little breakfast, is that the order matters. The order of how you do things matter.
Yeah.
And Bible's pretty clear, you know, seek first the kingdom of God.
Great.
And so for me, that has to be the number one priority anytime I'm making a decision for business or looking at where we're going next, is like, it's getting my focus right first.
So good.
Yeah. So surround yourself with other kingdom builders. So you've got that counsel. I think there's always things to learn, right? We never know. We'll never know everything. And there are people that have gone before you that have done things and have learnt so many things. So leverage off, other people's wisdom. That they have to. You've got to trust them. They also need to love you, and want your best interests at heart as well. Because. And here's the thing that I had to also, when it comes to let go, is letting go of the idea that I don't need help, or I can do this on my own.
Sure.
There are so many people. So there's so many people around us that are willing to help, assist, provide advice. Why wouldn't you take that?
Yeah.
I just think you don't need to do it alone, and God hasn't put you here to do it alone.
Yeah. What's that saying? It's you can go fast alone, but you can go far together.
That's right. Yeah, It's a good saying. So yeah, I think. Doing that. The other thing, if you are starting in business, or even if you're kind of in the middle of it, is finding a good mentor.
Great.
You may not just need one. You might have several for different aspects of your life. But I've had different mentors over the last few years that have really just helped me narrow in my focus on certain aspects of not just business but just life, and it's been great. And the other thing is that yes, you're put in this world to work hard, but I don't think you can outwork God, if that makes sense. So,
100%.
Yeah. So yes, work hard, absolutely. But there comes a point, and I kind of do this in a graph. It's like, here's what you would call success, and here's effort down the bottom.
Yeah.
For those that do math, is you work hard to a point when you get to the top, right? And this is where, if you continue to work hard or try too hard, you actually start to diminish. There's this point of diminishing returns,
right?
Because time is against you, but also you're only human, right?
Sure.
So I think we need to understand that there is a point where you can actually feel overwhelmed, overworked, overcommitted, and just low on energy, and at that point you've gone a bit too far.
Yeah, and I think it's knowing those points and identifying it and accepting it. There's always this, and I don't know if this is based out of just Western mindset or thinking, where it's like, if you find a barrier, if you found a point where you just can't keep going, do everything you can to get through it, like break through that wall. Like it's almost, and we almost over spiritualize it. Oh, if you feel like that, must mean the enemy's put something in your way, and you need to pray for more faith to get through it. Actually, I think that it's the opposite, where it's if you're facing something like that, lean into the fact that you might be at your limit, because that's where you invite God
absolutely
into that space, right? Well, Paul says, it's in my weakness that he is strong. If we don't know how weak we are, we will never know how strong he is.
Yep.
If we continue pursuing strength, going from strength to strength, then there's no need for God to really step in and invade into our life.
Yeah, I agree. I'm actually working on something right now with helping people aged 25 to 35 who are in this position where they're like, okay, I can step up my career. Maybe I can start a new business. Maybe I've started a business and I don't know what God's trying to tell me, or I feel like I'm working so hard, but yet I'm getting nowhere. As they start asking these questions, am I on the right track? Where am I going? And am I doing the right things? And what they resort to is this idea of like, I just got to work harder.
Yeah.
Right. And people celebrate whenever you ask them, how you going? Yeah, man, it's been busy. I've just been working so hard. But they wear it like it's a badge of honor, right?
Yeah.
But, God rested.
Yep. 100%.
And so you got to value the importance of rest and recovery and just stillness and learning to hear what God has to say to you. Maybe that's why you can't figure this out, because you're so busy and distracted that God can't actually speak to you because you're not willing to listen.
Yeah.
And it's this idea of not so much it's this idea of unhustling.
Yeah, sure.
Right? It's like everyone wants to hustle and hustle and hustle, but it's pretty much just to a point, because that's when you reach that end. And you can you can work continuously for the rest of your life. If you don't have an endpoint, if you don't define that endpoint, or you don't know what success looks like, or you don't know when enough is enough, you can continue to work to infinity, but it's going to cost you.
Yeah.
It's going to cost you time with your family. It's going to cost you time with God, like your ability to rock up to church. It's going to cost you. So, I'm working on this thing at the moment is to help people to understand like when is enough, and it's going to be different for people, like person to person, and when unhustle is about defining when enough is enough, so that you can pursue your purpose, you can regain your time and make more money, right? We're working on that. It's going to roll out shortly, hopefully. Hopefully it gives good perspective to young adults and young professionals who want to lead in a godly way, but also still crush it without crushing themselves. There's a verse that I've been really leaning on from Matthew, and I'll read it to you. For Matthew 16:26, for what will it profit a man if he gains the whole world and forfeits his soul? Yeah. Right? Yeah. Like, what's the point of working so hard to the point where you get to the end of your life and being like, man, all I've done is just work. Yeah. Haven't achieved what I feel like God's put on my life, and it'd probably be the worst feeling. Yeah. Regrets by the end of it. Yeah. And just to end this up and wrap this, I don't want to wrap this conversation, but it's all good. I always come back to the idea that, we will be held accountable for what we were given. The Bible says that we'll stand in front of the master and he'll ask us, what have you been faithful with, essentially, a well done, good and faithful servant. And that's not just work. It's like to me, that's how have you stewarded your holistic life. Like I've made you, faithful over your family and over your friends and over these people in your life. I want you to grow and disciple. But if we get so narrow-minded into just work, we actually, like you said, there's a cost, and the cost is the other things that surround it. And we potentially, while that looks like worldly success to go high and far, potentially it's not godly success. No, not at all. Well, that's awesome, man. We're gonna end it there, but we're also gonna just kick into some quick fire questions. Yeah, for sure. And the first one's super relevant to what we were just talking about. So, what does a Sabbath look like for you? Man, it's literally turning off my phone, being present with my wife and my daughter, and we just do whatever, well, mainly my wife and my daughter feel like. And I found so much joy and peace just watching her. Like we I'll give you an example. Like we haven't owned a TV for 2 to 3 years when we got married, and it was just this idea, like why pass on the opportunity to just be present and enjoy what you've got right in front of you. And so we make a really good effort to switch off completely. Yeah, great. No emails. Some of my workers get really angry because I don't reply to my emails, but it really is important to turn things off. Yeah, I love that. Yeah, be present. I love that. What's the most impactful resource that's helped you in business? And would you like to recommend that to others? Most impactful resource as in books, podcasts. Yeah, whatever. What's changed your life? Man, I could tell you so many books, but the podcast wise, I think if you're looking into some leadership stuff, Craig Gachel's leadership stuff has been awesome for me. The goat. Yeah. The Bible, obviously. It's the only way we're going to hear God's word and know what his character is and how he feels, thinks, and does things. And the other thing actually for me is my wife. Yeah, she's been a huge help in just getting my focus right on the right things. I feel like they say the Holy Spirit speaks better to women than it does to men. So my wife's been is super integral in my business success for sure. Yeah, I love that. Last question: what's the best piece of advice you were given when starting out in business? Yeah. Best piece of advice when starting out in business is to just get started. Nice. Yeah, you got to get started. Doesn't matter how small or how big, just get it moving and start for 5 minutes. You'll start to see 5 minutes turns into an hour, which then turns into 3 hours, and then all of a sudden you're on a roll. So just get started, guys. So good. Thanks so much for sharing with us, man. We hate to cut you so short. I'm sure we'll do another one of these and just unpack everything we spoke about, but really honoured to have you on here. We can't wait to see that resource that you're creating come out. Hopefully we can get our hands on it and link it in
to the bio, where people are listening to this. But also can't wait to see your business just go from strength to strength, man. Really looking forward to it.
Oh, awesome. It's been a pleasure. It's been awesome being here, man. I appreciate it. And I love what you're doing with this podcast. And I know God's got his hand of favour on it. So hoping, this conversation impacts someone in some way, shape or form. So cheers for having me.
Well, thank you so much for being a part of this conversation. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. And if you did enjoy it, why don't you hit the subscribe button so you don't miss out on any future episodes. You can also join our online community via Facebook or Instagram. And better yet, why don't you send this to someone who you think it may help in helping them take their next step towards becoming and being the change in their church and in their world. Because don't forget, we are the kings and priests of our world.